Hi, it's the Silly Moustache here. I really love it when people comment and ask questions after watching my YouTube videos, and I always try to respond. Recently, a gentleman called Neil Corbett 5057 commented, "Andy, you are clearly in the fortunate position of being able to afford such things. Sadly, many are not." Well, yes, of course. And then he told us his story, and he said that when his wife and he had young children, they were struggling financially, and at one time she got very upset one day when he spent £1 on some sheet music. He says the memory of that guilt lingers 40 years later. Yes, I can understand that. And then he says, we can now afford such things, and my wife encourages me to buy toys, and I encourage her to spend on her hobbies. Quite, okay, I understand that. And I think that it's a common factor that when we are young, but we get to that stage of maturity, marriage, children, mortgages, crawling up the slippery rope of career, etc., it is always challenging one way or another. Now, I'm not a rich man. I don't come from a rich family. I wasn't left houses or anything like that. And I've also had some changes. Now, I didn't have a particularly high education. I started working full-time when I was 18, and so let me start from that. In the late 60s, I moved out of my parents' house to live with my girlfriend in West London, and basically we were living in a hovel and earning very, very little. Time went by, I got a better job, got a bit better income, and I started buying guitars. It was always one in, one out. A £16 one, a £32 one, a £64 one, and it went up like that. I got to the point that I was buying Martins out of the back of a magazine called Melody Maker, newspaper called Melody Maker. But of course, the Martins that were affordable and were being sold were the ones that needed work on them. So I had to learn that the hard way. In 1973, my job, which was for a corporate then, moved out of London. And I had to find accommodation. And it was an opportunity for me to get my foot on the property ladder. So with some assistance from the company, I found a one-bedroom, unheated flat about 25 miles away from my office, and that was great, but I hadn't realised how difficult it was going to be to pay all the bills and the mortgages and the blah 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 blah. Got to the point where I had to sell everything that I could possibly live without to pay the mortgage and eat. And there were days when I didn't eat, I have to say. In 1977, my mum died, and my dad fell to pieces, really, and he was later diagnosed with having Alzheimer's disease, which is something I had not heard of at that time. And so I started caring for him until 1986, when he died, happily holding my hand. But in 1980, I met my wife, and in 1980, and we bought this house, and in 1983, I was diagnosed with something called lymphatic sarcoidosis, which basically meant that any moving part in your body, when moved, was extremely painful. I won't go into it any more than that, but certainly couldn't play guitar for 10 whole years, and my Martin D35, my dobro, and my F5 mandolin stayed in the uninsulated attic for 10 years. In 1993, that illness had such a toll on me that I had the opportunity to leave with a golden handshake, silver handshake, aluminium handshake, and leave that. So I was unemployed from 1993 to 1966, apart from 2 jobs that both lasted about 6 months. Bit of a rocky period, but I learnt to budget very carefully at that point. So in 1996 I got another full-time job which lasted. The pay was about half of what I was earning in the corporate world, but I was working and I was contributing, and I crawled up the greasy pole in this place which was a quango, which I won't go into here, but that ended in 2003, and I went self-employed to manage a certain project. In 2006 we were on holiday in Greece and something went wrong and I couldn't work out what it was, and basically it was radical heart failure, and got back to the UK just about in time to get it sorted out. So I got replumbed, and in 2007 the project that I'd been working on ended and I was 59. I didn't fancy looking for a job at age 59, so I talked to my financial advisor and we worked out a kind of retirement plan, which carried on pretty much okay. 2017-18, it was my throat cancer years, so I didn't really start collecting guitars until 1999, and that was when I was over 50. So Neil also wrote that he didn't understand my collection of beautiful guitars, which seemed to him to be so similar in style, construction and sound, and would I comment on that? Yes, I will. More next week. If you have been, thanks for watching.